When Gog Comes, Correcting the Timeline of the Last Days by John Little, copyright April 2022, narrated by the author. Supporting passages. The core chapters have given us almost everything that we need to know to decide that Gog is not the Antichrist, and that the Gog and Magog invasion comes years, even decades, before the Antichrist arrives. But there's more to this than just an attempted conquest of Israel. The destruction of Damascus, Isaiah 17. Isaiah 17 speaks about Damascus being destroyed, but in such a way that it is never rebuilt. And when we look at the history of that city, water is the key. Water that made the capital of Syria the perfect location for a strategic city, and it will be taken away. And the most likely moment for this event is the great earthquake that knocks everything down and changes the geology and hydrology of the Middle East. This will be the same earthquake that kills 2/3 of the people in the land of Israel and that destroys cities around the world. The drying up of the Nile and the fall of Egypt, Isaiah 19. As I write this, the prophecy about Egypt's fall is being fulfilled right now. Isaiah 19 says that the rivers that feed the Nile will be turned away, and that is happening. The grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam sits on the Blue Nile and is being filled far too quickly. The hardship of the average Egyptian will turn into civil war, and the already shaky government will fall. This will mean the suffering and death of many Egyptians. However, this will result in a great blessing, but the process will be terrible. God will call Egypt my people, but getting through to that moment will be hard. As a result, we will see a political entity rise that will encompass Egypt, Israel, and something both old and new, Assyria. This confederation will be the one that the Antichrist seeks to destroy. The king of the Negev, referred to in Daniel 11, sounds a lot like a result of Isaiah 19. Jacob's trouble and the great earthquake, Jeremiah 30 and 31. For 200 years, Bible commentaries have proclaimed that Jacob's trouble, Jeremiah 30, is the coming of the Antichrist. Their reasons for saying that are completely understandable, but wrong. What we will discover in Jeremiah 30 and 31 will demonstrate that this moment is the coming of Gog and Magog. The strongholds and cities thrown down, Micah 5. Micah 5 speaks of all the cities and strongholds thrown down. The chariots and horses will be destroyed, and vengeance and anger will be executed upon the nations. And all of this will happen during the time of Israel's restoration. Micah 5 proclaims the coming of our Messiah, while also saying that he would wait to save his people. We now understand what Micah wrote, but it had to have been perplexing to those living before Jesus came. Micah goes on to describe events that are exactly like what we have seen in parts of the Bible that describe the coming of Gog and Magog. Chapter 5 talks about the destruction of Israel's military power and the fall of strongholds, just like Isaiah's reference to the fall of towers. When that happens, God will exact vengeance upon the world. All of that conforms exactly to Ezekiel's fire. Billions will die, and I hope that you are not one of them. The 7 seals of Revelation. Everything that we've talked about fits exactly with the events that occur when Seal 6 is opened in heaven. But there are other seals to look at, and I'm afraid that it looks like Seal 3 is preparing to open. I very much want to be wrong about this, but all the other explanations are worse. If the black horse of the apocalypse is worse than what we are starting to see as I write this, then I don't have the words to describe how bad Seal 3 will be. And what I see coming is beyond comprehension. It will be the destruction of our way of life, and it started years ago with few people noticing. So let's talk about all of that and begin with the fall of Damascus and the drying up of the Nile in Isaiah 17 and 19. When Gog Comes, Correcting the Timeline of the Last Days by John Little, Copyright April 2022. Narrated by the author.